Side 3. Sir Percival of Wales. In the wild forests of Wales, there lived once a boy called Percival, with his mother. Never another living soul did he meet for the first 15 years of his life, nor did he learn anything of the ways of men and women in the world. But Percival grew strong and hardy in the wild wood, of deadly aim with the dart, and simple of heart, honest and upright. Now, one day as he wandered alone, discontented suddenly and longing for he knew not what, a new sound fell upon his ears, not the voice of any bird, nor the music of wind or water, yet music it was, of a kind that set his heart leaping, he knew not why. He paused, listening in a leafy glade, and as he waited there, 5 knights came riding towards him, their armor jingling and the bridles of their horses ringing like silver bells. "Greetings, fair youth," cried the first knight, reining in his steed and smiling down at Percival. "Nay, look not so stricken with wonder. Surely you have seen our like before." "Indeed not," said Percival, "and truth to tell, I know not what you are, unless you be angels straight out of heaven, such as those of whom my mother teaches me. Come, tell me, noble sirs, do you not serve the King of Heaven?" "Him we do serve indeed," said the knight, crossing himself reverently, "and so also do all men who live truly in this realm of Logres. But on earth we serve his appointed emperor, the noble King Arthur, at whose round table we sit. It is he who made us knights, for that is all we are. And you too he will make a knight, if you but prove yourself worthy of that great honor." "How may I do that?" asked Percival. "Come to King Arthur at Caerleon," answered the knight. "Tell him that I sent you thither, I, Sir Lancelot of the Lake, who, under King Arthur, ruled this land of Pant, which is also called North Wales. Then he will set you such deeds to do, such quests to accomplish, as we of his court follow after all our days. And if you prove worthy, he will make you a knight. But not in great deeds of arms lies the true worth of knighthood, rather in the heart of the doer of such deeds. If he be pure and humble, doing all things to the glory of God, and to bring that glory and that peace throughout all our holy kingdom of Logres." Then Sir Lancelot bowed his head to Percival and rode on his way, followed by the 4 other knights, leaving him wrapped in wonder, but with a great longing and a great humility stirring dimly within him. "Mother!" cried Percival excitedly, as he came striding up the path to the little cave where they lived. "Mother, oh mother, I have indeed met with wonders this day. They said they were not angels, but knights. Yet to me they seemed fairer than all the hosts of heaven. And one of them, the leader, Sir Lancelot was his name, said that I too could be a knight. Mother, I shall set out tomorrow morning and seek for King Arthur, who dwells in Caerleon." Then Percival's mother sighed deeply, and she wept for a little while, knowing that the appointed time had come when she must lose her son. Indeed, at first, she tried to persuade Percival to remain with her in the peace and safety of the forest, telling him of the dangers and sufferings that a knight must undergo. But all that she said only made Percival the more eager to set out on his quest, and at length she bowed her head quietly and gave him his way. Early on the following morning, Percival clad himself in his simple garments of skins, took a long, sharp dart in his hand, and prepared to bid his mother goodbye. "Go bravely forward, my son," she said as she kissed and blessed him. "Your father was the bravest and best of knights. Be worthy of him and of me. And if you live all your days in honor and purity, you too shall be numbered among the chosen few whose names will live forever among the true knights of Logres. Go on your way now, and remember that if dame or damsel ask your aid, give it freely and before all else, seeking no reward. Yet you may kiss the maiden who is willing, but take no more than a kiss, unless it be a ring. But be that only when you place your own ring upon her finger. Beware in whose company you travel on your quest, and see to it that only worthy men come near your heart. But above all, pray to God each day that he may be with you in all your deeds, and pass not by church or chapel without pausing a while in his honor. Very gravely Percival kissed his mother goodbye, and set out through the forest, walking swiftly, yet with his head bowed, as he thought of the solemn things which she had said to him. But in a little while the spring came back into his step, and he went on his way, singing joyfully, and tossing his long dart up into the air, until the keen blade flashed like silver in the sunlight as he caught it and whirled it up again and again. The shadows were falling in long black folds between the trees, and the sun drew near to the western hills, when Percival came suddenly to an open glade in the forest where the daisies clustered the green grass like snowflakes, and saw a pavilion of silk pitched beside a tinkling stream. Be this church or chapel, thought Percival, it is wondrous fair, and I will go into it. Stepping softly over the threshold, he passed into the shadowy bower, and there stood in wonder, looking down upon a damsel who lay sleeping on a couch of rich silk and samite, with one arm stretched out, more white than the coverlet, and her hair lighting up the pillow like sunshine. Very gently, Percival bent down over her, and took from her finger the one ring that she wore, a plain gold band set with a single red ruby. In its place he put his own gold ring, from which shone one white diamond, and the maiden's ring he set on his own finger. Then, still without waking her, he kissed her gently on the lips, and stole once more from the tent, his heart singing with a new wonder and a new longing. Deep into the forest went Percival, slept when darkness fell among the roots of a great oak tree, and with the first light was on his way again, striding through the wood until he came to the wide road which led to Caerleon. At noon he reached the city gates, passed them without stopping, and in time found himself within the very castle. King Arthur, with many of his knights, sat feasting there that day, for the time was Easter, and they had ceased from their labors for a little while. Percival stood by the door, marveling at all he saw, and envying even the serving men who waited upon the king and his company. And suddenly, as he stood there unobserved, all eyes turned towards the door, as a great man in golden red armor strode unannounced into the hall. Now, at that moment, Sir Kay was standing beside the king, holding in his hands the golden goblet, from which it was Arthur's custom to pledge all his company, ere the cup was passed round from hand to hand, that each might drink to him and to the glory of the realm of Logres.
"Stay, you pack of wine-bibbing hinds!"
roared the great red stranger.
"Here is a better than all of you!"
And with that, he snatched the goblet from Sir Kay, drained it at a draught, and with a great roar of laughter, strode from the hall with it still in his hand, leapt upon his horse, and galloped swiftly away. "Now, by my faith," cried King Arthur, springing to his feet, "this insult shall not go unpunished. Who will bring me back my cup?" Then every knight rose as one man and cried, "Let this quest be mine." "Not so," said King Arthur, motioning them to sit once more. "Yonder red braggart is not worthy to fall at a knight's hands. Let some humble squire follow and overthrow him, one who seeks to be made a knight. Such a one who returns to my court, wearing the red knight's armor and carrying my golden goblet, will I knight forthwith." Then Percival sprang forward from his place by the doorway and stood in the midst, clad as he was in the skins of wild goats, and with a long dart held in his hand. "King Arthur," he cried, "I'll fetch your cup. I want some armor, and that golden suit will do me very well." "Bah!" exclaimed Sir Kay rudely. "What can this miserable goatherd do against so great a knight?" "Who are you, fair sir?" asked King Arthur, courteous as always to all men. "My name is Percival," was the answer. "I do not know who my father was, for I never saw him, nor heard my mother speak of him. But she has brought me up in the forests of Wales, And I come now to ask you to make me a knight.
Make you a knight, indeed,
scoffed Sir Kay. Go and tend sheep on the mountains before yonder ram in the golden armor makes you run away in terror. A knight shall you be, said King Arthur, if you bring back my cup and return wearing the armor of the robber who has taken it. Lo, now, this quest is yours. I have no horse, said Percival. One shall be ready for you at the door, answered Arthur. Eat now swiftly and get you gone. But you need arms and weapons. I have my dart, interrupted Percival. As for armor, I'll wait until I can put on that golden suit, which you all saw not long ago. When he had eaten, Percival rose to go, but as he passed down the hall, a damsel stood before him and cried aloud, "The King of Heaven bless you, Sir Percival, the best of knights."
Be silent, witless wench,
cried Sir Kay angrily, and he struck the damsel across the face. Beware of me when I return in my golden armor, said Percival, looking scornfully at Sir Kay. That unknightly stroke will I revenge with a blow that you will not lightly forget. Then he hastened from the hall, sprang upon the waiting horse, and rode away into the forest. Percival went much faster than the Red Knight, so that before sunset he overtook him as he rode quietly up a mountain path towards a lone grey tower outlined against the pale pink of the clouds. "Turn, thief!" shouted Percival as soon as he was near enough. "Turn and defend yourself!"
"Ha!"
cried the Red Knight, wheeling his steed.
"What insolent boy are you? And why do you bid me stand?"
"I come from King Arthur," answered Percival. "Give me back the golden goblet which you stole this day at his feast. Moreover, you must go yourself to the court and do homage there. But first of all, you must yield to me and give me that fine suit of armor which you wear so proudly." "And if I do not?" asked the Red Knight, speaking quietly, but his eyes flashing with fury like the lightning in the quiet sky before a mighty storm. "Why, then I will kill you, and help myself to cup and armor," exclaimed Percival.
"Insolent child!"
roared the Red Knight in a voice of thunder.
"You have asked for death. Now take it!"
With that, he set his spear in rest and came down the hillside like a mighty avalanche, expecting to transfix his enemy as if he were a butterfly on a pin. But Percival leapt suddenly from his horse, so that the spear passed harmlessly over its head, and stood in the middle of the path, shouting taunts. "You great coward!" he jeered. "First you try to spear an unarmed man, and then you run away down the hillside." With horrible oaths, the Red Knight wheeled his horse once more and came charging up the path, his spear aimed at Percival. But this time, Percival drew back his dart and threw it suddenly, so suddenly that it sped like a flash of light over the Red Knight's shield and caught him in the throat, just above the rim of his armor, so that he fell backwards from his horse and lay there dead. Percival knelt down triumphantly beside his fallen foe and drew out King Arthur's golden cup from the wallet at his waist. But when he tried to loosen the golden armor from the body, he found himself defeated, for he did not know how it was fastened on. Just then he heard the sound of a horse's hooves, and looking up saw an old man on horseback dressed in dark armor, whose helmet hung at his saddle-bow and whose grey hair fell to his shoulders. "Greetings, young sir," said the old knight, smiling kindly upon Percival. "What do you with this dead knight, whom you have slain so valiantly?" "I want to get this man out of the armor and wear it myself," replied Percival. The old knight dismounted from his horse and showed Percival how to unlace the armor and draw it off and on piece by piece. "My name is Gonemans," said the knight presently, "and I dwell nearby in an ancient manor house. Come you thither with me, young sir, and I will teach you all things that you should know before you can become a worthy knight, for not alone by such a deed as this may you win to the true honor." So Percival went with Sir Gonemans, and dwelt all that summer in his house, learning to fight with sword and spear, to wear his armor and sit his horse as a knight should. And he learnt also of the high order of knighthood, which was so much more than the mere doing of mighty deeds. He learnt of right and wrong, of a knight's duty ever to defend the weak and punish the cruel and evil. And at last he rode forth on his way once more, clad in shining armor, with a tall spear in his hand, after bidding a courteous farewell to Sir Gonemans. It was late autumn by now, and as he rode beneath the trees in the deep woods and forests, the leaves gleamed red and gold like his armor, which seemed almost to be part of the foliage and bracken through which he passed. Many days rode Percival in quest of adventure, and often as he went, his eyes fell upon the ruby ring on his finger, and he thought more and more of the lovely damsel whom he had found sleeping in the pavilion. At length, on a dark, sombre evening when the clouds lowered threateningly above him, he came by a winding way among great bare rocks, through a sad and desolate land, until suddenly he saw a dark castle in front of him. The walls were shattered and overthrown. The towers were cracked down the sides as if by lightning. Yet no weeds grew among the stones, or even between the cobbles under the yawning gateway. And in the center stood the great keep, firm and solid in the midst of that desolation. Beneath the sharp teeth of the portcullis rode Percival, his horse's hooves ringing hollowly on the stone, and on through dark arches and deserted courtyards until he came to the entrance of the great hall. Here he could see a light burning, and so, having tied his horse to a ring in the wall, he walked up the steps and into a mighty room with a high roof of black beams. There was no one to be seen, and yet a fire burned merrily in the great fireplace. Torches shone brightly from rings in the walls, and dinner was set at a table on the dais. Percival walked slowly up the hall and stood looking about him. On a little table not far from the fire, he saw laid out a set of great ivory chessmen, with a chair drawn up on one side as if ready for a game. While still wondering what all this might mean, Percival sat down in the chair, and presently he reached out idly and moved a white pawn forward 2 squares on the board. At once, a red pawn moved forward by itself. Percival was alert in an instant, but all was quiet. There was not even the sound of any breath but his own. So he moved another piece, and immediately a red piece was moved also. Percival moved again as if playing, and behold, the red pieces moved in turn, so cunningly that in a very few minutes he saw that he was checkmated. Swiftly he rearranged the pieces, and this time the red moved first, and a second game was played, which Percival lost also. A third time this happened, and Percival rose in a sudden fury, drawing his sword to crush the pieces and hack the board. But as he did so, a damsel ran suddenly into the room. "Hold your hand, Sir Knight," she cried. "If you strike at these magic chess pieces, a terrible evil will befall you." "Who are you, lady?" asked Percival. "I am Blanchefleur," she answered, and as she spoke she came forward into the light of the candles which stood near to the chess table, and with a sudden gasp of wonder and joy, Percival knew her for the maiden in the pavilion. And even as he recognized her, he saw his diamond ring shining on her finger. He held out his hand to her, and saw her suddenly pause as she recognized her own ring, which he still wore. "Lady Blanchefleur," he said gently, "I have sought for you long. My name is Percival, and I beg you to pardon me for the wrong I did you, meaning no wrong, when I took this ring from you as you slept, and took also one kiss from your lips." "Percival," she answered gently, "I have seen you only in my dreams. Each night you have come to me wearing my ring, and have kissed me once more on the lips, and my heart has gone out to you across the darkness. But in this magic castle I have waited for you. The time to speak of love is not yet. Come, sit down to supper, for you shall see a more wondrous thing than yonder enchanted chessboard." They took their places at the table, but there was no food nor wine upon it, nor did any man or woman come to wait upon them. Yet Percival sat silent, looking at Blanchefleur. "Lady," he said at length, "all times are the true time for such a love as mine. Lady, will you be my wife? I swear to you that no other in all the world shall come near me, nor shall my lips touch those of any save you alone." Blanchefleur laid her hand in his with never a word, and as she touched him, suddenly a roar of thunder shook the castle. The great door of the hall flew open, and a strange damsel, dressed and veiled in white, walked slowly into the hall, holding aloft a great goblet or grail covered in a cloth. A light shone from within the grail, so bright that no man might look upon it. Yet it was with another and a holy awe that Percival sank to his knees and bowed his head in his hands. A second veiled woman followed the first, bearing a golden platter, and a third followed her, carrying a spear with a point of white light from which dripped blood that vanished ere it touched the floor. As they passed up the hall and round the table where Percival and Blanchefleur knelt, the whole room seemed to be filled with sweet scents as of roses and spices. And when the procession of the Grail had passed down the hall once more and out of the door, which closed again behind them, there fell upon Percival a peace of heart that passed all understanding, and a great joy. "The Holy Grail draws near to Logres," said Blanchefleur. "Ask me no more concerning what you have seen, for the time has not yet come. One other must enter this castle and see it, and that is Sir Lancelot of the Lake. But, Percival, you are more blessed than he, for through him shall come the ending of the glory of Logres. Though in Logres there has so far been none so glorious as he, save only Gawain. Go you now to Camelot and wait for the coming of Galahad. On the day when he sits in the Siege Perilous, you shall see the Holy Grail once more." "Lady," said Percival, rising to his feet but standing with bowed head, "I would seek for it now. It seems to me that there is no quest in all the world so worthy." "No quest indeed," answered Blanchefleur, "but not yet may you seek it. On the day when the glory of Logres is at its full, the Grail shall come to Camelot. Then all shall seek, but only the most worthy shall find it." "I would be one of those," cried Percival, and forgetting all else, he ran down the hall, never heeding Blanchefleur's cry, leapt upon his horse, and galloped away into the forest. When morning came, the madness seemed to leave him suddenly, and turning round, he tried to ride back in search of Blanchefleur. But though he wandered for many, many days, he could never again find any trace of the desolate land or of the mysterious castle of Carbonet. Sad and wretched, Percival turned at length and rode towards Caerleon. It was winter by now, and the snow lay thick on the high road as Percival came out from the mountains and forests of central Wales and drew near the city, where he paused, remembering his lost Blanchefleur. As he sat there on his horse, 4 knights came riding towards him, and these were Sir Kay, Sir Ewain, Sir Gawain, and King Arthur himself. "Ride forward now," said King Arthur to Sir Kay, "and ask yonder knight his name, whither he journeys, and why he sits thus lost in thought." "Oh, Sir Knight," shouted Kay as he drew near, "tell me your name and business." But Percival was lost so deeply in his thoughts that he neither saw nor heard. "Answer, if you be not a dumb man," shouted Kay, and then, losing his temper somewhat, he struck at Percival with his iron gauntlet. Then Percival sat upright on his horse, reined backwards a little way, set his spear in rest, and cried, "No man shall strike me thus and go unpunished.
Defend yourself, you cowardly, craven knight! Sir Kay drew back also, levelled his spear, and they galloped together with all their strength. Sir Kay's spear struck Percival's shield and broke into pieces, but Percival smote so hard and truly that he pierced Kay's shield, wounding him deeply in the side and hurling him to the ground. Then he sat with his spear ready in case one of the other knights should attack him. "I will joust with all or any of you," he cried. "I will defend my right to sit my horse by the roadside without having to suffer the blows and insults of such a shameful knight as this." "It is Percival!" exclaimed Sir Gawain suddenly. Truly, he must have been lost in deep thoughts of love to sit as he did while Sir Kay struck him. "Ask him to speak with us, fair nephew," said King Arthur, and Gawain rode forward towards Percival. "Gentle sir," said he with all courtesy, "yonder is King Arthur, our sovereign lord, and he desires you to speak with him. As for Sir Kay, whom you have smitten down, well, he deserves this punishment for his lack of knightly gentleness." When Percival heard this, he was glad. "Then are both mine oaths fulfilled," he cried. "I have punished Sir Kay for the evil blow he gave the damsel on the day when I came first to Caerleon, and I come before King Arthur wearing the armor of the Red Knight, whom I have slain, and carrying in my wallet the golden goblet which was stolen from his board." Percival rode forward, dismounted from his horse, and knelt before King Arthur. "Lord King," he said, "make me a knight, I pray you, and here I swear to spend all my days in your service, striving to bring glory to the realm of Logres." "Arise, Sir Percival of Wales," said King Arthur. "Your place awaits you at the Round Table, between Sir Gawain and the Siege Perilous. In the days long past, Merlin, the good enchanter, told me that you would come when the highest moment of the realm of Logres drew near." The story of Lancelot and Elaine. For many years, King Arthur and his knights fought against the Saxons at different places all over the land of Britain. But when the Battle of Mount Barden had been fought, there followed long years of peace, when the realm of Logres seemed to smile in a long, divine summer between the clouds that were gathering thickly over all the rest of the world. At first, there were many robbers and evil men, giants, too, and wizards, against whom the knights must be ready to fight at any moment. And it was not only at the great feasts of Easter and Pentecost, Michaelmas and Christmas, that damsels came riding to King Arthur's court to seek redress for the wrongs that had been done them. But as the years rolled by, fewer and fewer needed help. The peace of a true and holy state settled more and more surely upon Logres. And King Arthur's knights spent more and more of their time holding great tournaments at Camelot or Caerleon, growing more and more skilled in arms, it is true, but finding less and less cause to prove their prowess. Most of the younger knights rode about all over the country in quest of adventures, but the older ones waited more and more for some great thing to befall, and foremost amongst these was Lancelot. For long years he had been supreme, no knight equaling him in strength and valor, in courtesy and nobleness of mind. Not even Tristram or Gareth, Geraint, or the young knight Percival. Only Gawain might compare with him, and they were friends so true that no rivalry ever sprang up between them. Now from the very first day when he came to court, Lancelot had loved Queen Guinevere, and her alone of all ladies in the world. Faithfully and truly he served her for many years, as a knight should, and King Arthur felt no jealousy, for he trusted the high honor of both Lancelot and the Queen. And for a long time Lancelot served Guinevere as a true knight and a true subject, seeking only to bring her honor by his mighty deeds. But in the long years of peace, when he was so seldom called away from Camelot on a quest, And when King Arthur needed no longer to lead his hosts forth to battle, both Lancelot and Guinevere began to spend more and more of their time together, more and more often without King Arthur's knowledge. In this way, the first shadow of a great evil crept into Logres, so silently and so innocent in seeming that no one observed it, nor did either Lancelot or Guinevere dream whither it would lead. But the powers of evil, seeking now more and more desperately to find some tiny loophole through which to climb into the stronghold of good, saw it and set a cunning snare for Lancelot. One blithe spring day at the feast of Easter, which King Arthur held at Camelot, there came a hermit into the great hall and greeted those who sat there at meat. "May God's blessing fall upon all this company," he cried. "Surely a fairer gathering of knights the world shall never see. But there is yet one place empty. Tell me of that seat, I pray you, my lord king." And he pointed with his staff to the empty place between Sir Lancelot and Sir Percival. "Reverend father," answered King Arthur, "that is the Siege Perilous, and therein one knight only shall sit, for so Merlin foretold on the day of the making of this table. But if another man sit there, he shall die swiftly by the magic of that siege." "Know you who shall sit therein?" asked the hermit. "Nay," said King Arthur and all his knights, "we know not who it is that shall sit there." "He is not yet born," said the hermit, "but this same year he shall see the light, and he it is who shall win the quest of the Holy Grail. But of that I came not hither to speak, rather of another quest, and the saving of a lady who is the victim of wicked enchantments in the Dolorous Tower. Only the best knight amongst you can win her freedom, and that is Sir Lancelot of the Lake. Therefore I beg you to send him with all speed." Far and far Sir Lancelot rode with the hermit, until on a day he came to a city upon a dark hillside with narrow streets and a great black tower at the top. Then all the people cried out as he rode amongst them, "Welcome, Sir Lancelot, the flower of knighthood! By your aid shall our lady be saved." Up to the tower went Lancelot, the hermit still guiding him, into the tower and up a great staircase until they came to a mighty door of iron. "Within this place," said the hermit, "has lain the fairest lady in the land for 5 long years. By enchantment, Queen Morgana le Fay has imprisoned her out of evil jealousy, and none may free her save the best of knights." Then Lancelot set his hand to the door, and at once the great bolts and bars fell into pieces, the hinges screamed shrilly, and pressing into the room, he found the dolorous lady lying in a bath of scalding hot water, where she had been bound by her wicked enemy. But the enchantment ended when Lancelot broke through the door, and the dolorous lady came back to her people. "Sir Knight," said the hermit, "since you have delivered this lady, you must deliver us also from a serpent which dwells nearby in an ancient tomb." Then Sir Lancelot took up his shield and said, "What I may do to save you from evil, that will I attempt with the help of God. Therefore bring me thither." When he came up to the mountain top, there stood a great stone cromlech of 3 upright stones, and a 4th laid over them. And out of this dark abode came a mighty wingless dragon, breathing fire and hissing horribly. All through the long day the battle lasted, and in the evening Lancelot smote off the dragon's head. Then he mounted his horse once more, and rode down beyond the hill and deep into the lonely passes of Wales, until he came through the wastelands to where a mighty castle stood, half ruined and half whole, the great keep rising high above rent walls and fallen towers. Round the castle rode Lancelot, marveling to see the desolation of it, and how no weeds nor creepers grew even over the fallen stones. And he came in time to a part of the building which still stood unharmed. Here 2 squires met him and led him into the great hall where Pelles, the maimed king, whom Balin had smitten long years before when he struck the dolorous stroke, sat amongst his knights and ladies at the high table on its dais above the body of the hall. "Welcome, fair knights," said King Pelles, raising one wasted arm where he lay unable to move on a golden couch. "Sit you down at my table. It is long since any knight came to this haunted castle of Carbonek, and I fear that many years still must pass before one comes who may heal me of my grievous wound. But tell me your name. I require you by your knightly honor. Tell me truly." "Sir," said Lancelot, bowing gravely, "I hold it a great honor that you should welcome me thus, and as for my name, it is Lancelot of the Lake." "And I," answered his host, "am Pelles, king of the wastelands and of haunted Carbonek. But I hold a sacred trust, for Joseph of Arimathea was my ancestor. And anon you shall see a wonder." Lancelot seated himself at the table, and he noticed that there was no food nor wine set before anyone there, and that a great silence had fallen upon them all. Then suddenly there was a peal of thunder. The door flew open, and into the hall came 3 women, dressed all in white and veiled, moving so silently that he thought they must be spirits and not women. The first bore in her hand a spear with a point of light from which dripped blood that vanished ere it touched the floor. The second held a golden platter covered with a cloth, and the third a golden cup covered also, but seeming to be filled with a light so pure and bright that no man might look at it. But it was with a deeper awe and reverence that Lancelot hid his face in prayer as the procession passed round the table and out of the hall once more. When it was gone, a great peace and well-being fell upon all present, and it seemed to Lancelot that he had eaten and drunk of more than mortal food. "My lord," he said in a hushed voice, "what may this mean?" "Sir," answered King Pelles, "you have seen the most precious tokens in the world, and I, the descendant of Joseph of Arimathea, am their guardian. From that cup and platter our Lord Jesus Christ ate and drank at the Last Supper. With that spear Longinus the Roman centurion pierced his side as he hung upon the cross. And in that same cup, which is called the Holy Grail, Joseph of Arimathea caught his most precious blood as it ran from the wound. Know, I say, that the Holy Grail has now passed by you beneath that cross. When it passes amongst you all as you sit at Camelot, the round table shall be broken for a season, as you all ride forth in quest of it." When the wonder of what he had seen had passed from Lancelot a little, he spoke to his host of other matters, and many days he remained at Castle Carbonek, but never again did he see the procession of the Holy Grail. But King Pelles had a daughter called Elaine, one of the fairest damsels in the world, and she loved Lancelot the moment that she saw him. All the time he was at Castle Carbonek, Elaine tended on him, served him in all things, and tried her hardest to win his love. But though Lancelot treated her with all courtesy, rode hunting with her, listened to her singing, played at chess with her, yet still his heart was unstirred, and he remained faithful to Queen Guinevere, though unfaithful in thought at least to his honor as a knight of Logres and to his king. Then Elaine spoke with her father, King Pelles, and he who could see a little of the future as through a glass darkly made answer, "Do not weep and lament, my daughter. Lancelot shall indeed be your lord, and you shall bear him a son, which shall be called Galahad, who shall bring the wastelands from under the shadow of the curse, and heal me of my wounds. I know not how this may come to pass, but that it will be so, have no fear. The days went by, while Lancelot dwelt in peace at Carbonek, but Elaine prospered not at all in her love. At length, in despair, she turned aside to seek the aid of enchantment, and there came to her a damsel called Brighton, who was skilled in all the arts of which Morgana le Fay was queen. "Ah, lady," said the damsel, "know well that Sir Lancelot loves only Queen Guinevere, and no other woman in all the world. Therefore, we must work by guile if you would have him." After this they spoke together for a long time, and the end of it was that Elaine went secretly from Carbonek. Then there came a man to Lancelot bearing a ring, which seemed to him one that he knew well, which Queen Guinevere always wore. "Where is your lady the queen?" asked Lancelot. "Sir," answered the man, "she is at Case Castle, not many miles from here, and she bids you come to her as soon as may be." Then Lancelot bade a hasty farewell to King Pelles, mounted his horse, and rode swiftly through the wastelands until Carbonek was lost behind him, and he came at sundown to the little castle of Case on the skirts of the great forest. And there he found Queen Guinevere, or so it seemed to him, waiting for him, with her eyes full of love. But really it was Elaine, who, by the arts of Brighton, had taken the form of Guinevere for a little while, in the dim glow of evening. When Lancelot saw her alone thus, he quite forgot his honor and his oath, the glory of Logres, and his faith to King Arthur. All his thoughts were on Guinevere. And when she spoke to him of marriage, he forgot even that she was King Arthur's wife. Indeed, Brighton the enchantress had made all things ready at the castle of Case. The morning dawned grey and ominous, and Lancelot awoke to find the Lady Elaine sleeping by his side. Then he remembered all, and how he was shamed forever, even though Elaine and not Guinevere was beside him. "Alas," he cried, "I have lived too long, for now I am dishonored." Then Elaine woke and knelt before him, confessing all and praying for his forgiveness. "Ah, noble Sir Lancelot," she cried, "I did all these things only for love of you." But Lancelot cried aloud in his agony of mind, and the world seemed to spin round him. Flinging open the window, he leapt out of it, clad only in his shirt, fell into a bed of roses, sprang to his feet all scratched and bleeding from the thorns, and rushed away, still crying aloud, until he was lost in the forest. And there he wandered, and upon the desolate hills of Wales, his wits quite gone from him for many a month, until Sir Bors and Sir Percival found him and drew him back to Camelot, where he was healed. But thus was Sir Galahad born, who in due course of time would take his place unharmed in the siege perilous of the Round Table, at the time when the Holy Grail would come to Camelot, and he would be the truest and purest knight of all the world. And so when the quest of the Holy Grail fell on all the knights of the Round Table, he and he alone was found worthy to take the Grail and fulfill the quest, where none other succeeded, not Sir Lancelot, or Sir Bors, or even Sir Percival. But that is another story. End of Side 3.